Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, 7 o'clock. So you know what time it is. It's time for your weekly episode of SCV Chat. Before we get started, as usual, the views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Sons Confederate Veterans, its GEC, any divisions, brigade, camps, or other subsidiaries, strictly those of us who are expressing them. So good evening, everyone. We're missing a couple of our normal crew. Adam will be on next week with our first Hearth and Home episode as part of our new monthly lineup. He's working on having something very interesting from the museum to highlight. Matt is handling some family business, but he'll be back on Thursday for Look Around the Confederation. But we do have the Commander-in-Chief and Chief of Heritage Operations, Walter D. Donnie Kennedy, and his twin, James Ronald Kennedy, with us. So good evening, gentlemen. How are y'all?
I still get them two confused. I can't tell which one is which.
The good looking one is Ron.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know which one's Connor and which one's the Commander-in-Chief. I'm getting confused.
I'm the younger, better looking Adam Southern is what I am. I need to get a T-shirt that says that. Really quickly before we get started, I do want to mention one thing. Ray Shores at Victory Marketing Solution, he is looking for somebody to help around with the Victory campaign. It's a part-time position. It's dealing with marketing for the campaign. If you are interested in what the job entails and everything like that, email scvyouthOutreach@gmail.com or message the page, and I'll be happy to send over the job requirements that he sent over. We're going to talk more about that on Thursday, but you know we're wanting to go ahead and announce it today. But if y'all are interested in that, if you're looking for a part-time, I think he said roughly 6 to 10 hours a month way to help. When wanting to help, email us, and I'll be happy to send that information over. Got a lot of folks chiming into the chat. I should have brought my reading glasses. Mama Linda's on. Daddy Moose is on. So good evening, everybody. Of course, Paul Grambling Jr., the legend. AOT Commander Jimmy Hill's on. Past Commander-in-Chief Chuck McMichael. He says, good evening, y'all. Y'all look the same, not alike, but the same. And Todd's on too. So hey, Todd, you can't accept a phone call. But anyway, as we've discussed with, or before we get started, we're going to try to run through our normal beginning of the show kind of quickly, just so that we can get to the Kennedy twins and talk about our first book in our book review, monthly book review. September 18th is approaching. We're a month and 2 days away from that. That is a very significant date in the world of Southern heritage. We'll be relaying to rest General Nathan Bedford Forrest and his wife Mary Ann Montgomery Forrest at historic Elm Springs. It is going to be a great day. If you have not registered, you need to go and register and get your pass for the event. You will not be allowed on site without that pass. Remember, if you do have an iPhone or an Android, Eventbrite, who the passes are through, they do have an app that you can download. That's how I have my pass done, and it'll save you from having to carry around paper. But you can get in with the paper pass. Anything else on that, CIC?
Deadline to register is fast approaching. August 31st is the last day to register. Must register by 11:30 at night on August the 31st. Right now, we currently have 1,850 people registered.
It should be twice that number, or 10 times that number. So y'all need to register. Get on there. The website is scrolling across the bottom of our page right now. Also, when the show is over, if you're not writing down the URL, you can go to the SCV Chat Facebook page, and it's saved at the top of the page. You can get there. Remember, this is in a sense, a funeral. and we're pushing 3 R's: respect, remembrance, and reverence. When it's time for us to have a big hootenanny dealing with the for a big celebration, that'll be when we re-erect the monument at Elm Springs. So register. September 18th is also the last day that you'll be able to get the SCV Chat limited edition T-shirt. Moose is wearing his, but he's behind the picture right now. But the shirt comes in a variety of colors. We've got red, we've got gray, we've got blue, we've got white. The shirt has the 3 bars of the First National, the red bar, the white bar, the red bar, with the words "Let's bring him home," a beautiful picture of General Forrest, and the words, where his home is, final resting place would be historic Columbia, Tennessee, or historic Elm Springs of Columbia, Tennessee. On the front also has our SCV Chat logo. 100% of the proceeds that we've raised have gone to the shirts, or from the shirts have gone to the SCV. As of the national reunion, it was close to $500. I need to talk to Ray and find out how much more it is, this week or this month since reunion. So y'all, after September the 18th, we won't have those shirts anymore. We'll be going to a possibly a new design. So yeah. And if you need the link for that, also go and look at our page, and it'll take you there, or go to victoryflagsmore.com. Anyway, this week we are talking about, one more thing before I get on that. We've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, and I know we were a little bit late today on putting out our post, and we apologize for that. Just, everybody, between Moose getting ready to go back to that school in Upper Mississippi, myself having the first real day off in a couple weeks, we didn't get a chance to schedule our event out early enough, but we will be doing that. But whenever you see something from our page, remember to share it. That's our potential audience size. The last couple of things we've had, we've really had an increase in our numbers, but we can only do it with y'all's help. So y'all remember to share the page, share our posts. Let's get it out there. Let's start reaching that 250 million people worldwide. But this week we are talking about DIXIE Rising Rules for Rebels. There's that copy, which I also have this copy, my copy that I've read. And we've got the authors. One wrote the book, one wrote the foreword to the book. But I'm going to let them. They're friends of the show. They've been on here before. They're world famous. Ron, Don, take it away.
Okay, let me get started. I'm going to jump in there. Since I wrote the foreword, I kind of feel like obligated to go first. I may have been the second twin born, but this time I get to be first. The books that we have written have really been about the Southern Heritage Movement, and we've really highlighted the Sons of Confederate Veterans. From the very beginning, Ron and I have been very much involved in the Southern movement, and especially working with the SCV. This book, DIXIE Rising Rules for Rebel, is a little different because we're looking at total victory, and we're not looking just at saving some monuments or pushing back on those who want to take down the flags and the monument. What we're looking at, how do we gain total victory? How do we defeat our enemies? And it has to be more than just an SCV type of thing. The SCV is crucial. It is very crucial, fundamental to victory, but it cannot do those things which needs to be done to get this really, really going. And it's more than a Southern Heritage Movement. And really, DIXIE Rising Rules for Rebel is kind of a blueprint of how do we get there politically, and it's a different type of politics than what we're normally used to talking about. So with that, I'm going to let Ron kind of explain some of that.
Okay, well, thank you. As always, my twin brother corrects me and keeps me running straight. But at any rate, I want to first let everybody know that's listening that, look, it's more than just us. It's more than just the people of the South. It's more than just the Southern heritage people. I mean, if you'll look at a map of all the red states and the red counties across America, just look at that. Listen, we're not alone, folks. The vast majority of American real estate, these are American value voters by counties. Look at that. I mean, there's areas of California, look out there in red state, those counties would love to secede from California. You know, a while back, California was talking about seceding from the United States when Trump was president. Well, there's a lot of red county states that like to secede. Look at Oregon. They've already, a number of those counties have already held a ballot initiative and voted to leave Oregon and join Idaho or form a separate Oregon, a separate a state. So you see this all over. You can see it in the South, Virginia, the western counties of the Old Dominion state. They are being ruled by a bunch of blue voters, neo-Marxist voters who all hold their allegiance to the bureaucracy, the deep state in Washington, D.C. Well, of course, they're going to vote for big government, expecting bureaucrats who live off of the federal tit in Washington, D.C. to vote for a limited government is like expecting a welfare recipient to vote for someone who's out campaigning to reduce welfare. It's not going to happen. So you can see from this map alone that we are not alone, that there is a potential here for a mass movement, and that's what we want to do. All right, take that map down, let you, if you don't mind. All right, but so what I'm trying to point out is this is more than just a Southern movement, but the South has to be, it has to be the catalyst. A lot of us are, well, I would hope most of us know about guns and rifles and shotguns. You look at that shotgun shell and there's a little bitty percussion cap at the end of it. Well, if you hit that, it'll make a little spark, make a little noise. Well, that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to ignite the powder in front of it, and then you get the explosion. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to foment the people of the South into a group who are actively working to fundamentally change America, change the way that we're being governed. But we are the catalyst. I wrote another book, Red State, Red County Secession. Now, this is, I've had people from outside of the South call me and get scores of this book to give out to their friends. So this is to people all over America, what we need to do to get all the red county, red state voters together and threaten the neo-Marxists who now control America, that either they give us our right of local self-government or else they're going to face secession. Massive secession.
Now,
also, I have another.
Can I interject down here? The important thing to remember here is not that we are saying secede, secede, secede. We're not a secession group. We are a liberty group. This threat to the federal bureaucracy of red state and red county secession is a threat that will force them to kowtow to our will instead of us kowtowing to their will. I've told people many times, I'm opposed to secession. I'm pro-liberty, but I will protect liberty by whatever means necessary. That's what Patrick Henry said. First thing I have at heart is American liberty. The second thing is American union.
So I have another book out that recently published in which I'm talking to Christians. Be ye separate, Bible Belt revival or Marxist revolution. Well, listen, these people who go to church, most of them would never attend an SCV meeting or a heritage movement or anything, but they have the same vested interests as we have. The federal government is pushing all manner of secular, humanist, atheist, God for sake and God help us, what they are pushing down our throats, transgenderism, you name it. So the Christian community, whether they're evangelical or whether they're Roman Catholic, they all have a vested interest in doing something, finding a way to prevent the federal government from forcing us to live under a secular humanist America. So that's another section of people that we're looking at. And I have a book coming out this fall entitled Nullifying Gun Control. The idea, and this Shotwell's doing this too. It should be out hopefully by this fall. But the idea is there's a lot of Second Amendment people all across America. I've got some friends out in Wyoming. They still can't understand why the South seceded, but they hate the federal government trying to take their guns away. Well, guess what, folks? They're in the same boat as we're in. So we've got to reach out and pull together a movement of fellow conservatives, people who believe in the same things that we believe in, that is local self-government. And that's what we're pushing towards. Now, as far as Dixie Rising is concerned, I want to make sure that Southerners understand, and this is something conservatives, whether they're Southerners or not, but especially Southerners, don't understand, that the Constitution, as glorious as it may be, as wonderful as it may be, the Constitution is not self-enforcing. I don't care how beautiful the language is, it's meaningless if you don't have the political power to enforce the limitations imposed upon the government by the Constitution.
Ron, was it not Madison or Jefferson said that the Constitution was a paper barricade behind which our rights are not secure? So what he's pointing out here is you've got to have a mechanism to make that paper barricade a solid wall to protect us from federal encroachment.
Yeah, and it was John Randolph of Roanoke, Virginia, who was in a debate with a group of conservatives in Virginia, and they were touting the wonders of the Constitution, and he was eating a bowl of figs. At the time, he picked up a fig, and he said, "A fig for the Constitution, if it does not protect our most basic rights." And that is the whole idea. The sovereign state, as pointed out by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison in 1798, the Virginia and Kentucky resolves, they point out that the sovereign state is that barrier. It is the mechanism by which we, the people, enforce the limitations upon the federal government. Now, if you don't have that political power, if you don't have that political mechanism, you end up being a stateless people. And that can be a very, very dangerous thing. Stateless people are people who have no government that's dedicated to protecting and, more importantly, promoting their interests. So give an example of stateless people. Well, the Armenians are a great example when they were conquered by the the Turks. And what happened to those stateless Armenians? Well,
massacred.
They were massacred. Genocide. That's the ultimate result of a stateless people. He said, well, yeah, that was way back. That was them. We have the Constitution. Well, I'll give you another example. The people of California. Now, California's not known as being a conservative state, but back in 2008, they had a ballot initiative and they voted and said, look, we want the definition of marriage to be between one man and one woman. Great. But the federal government stepped in and nullified the will of the people. Again, you're stateless. You have privileges, but those privileges are exercised at the sufferance of the federal government.
Well, hate to interrupt, but another example, and even mentioned it in the book later on, we are talking about the different revolutionary tactics. The Irish after World War I, or actually for all of Irish history, how they were placated and the closest part of the British Empire. and they were just, just everything that happened with them. And we see what can happen when people are ignored with that. But sorry.
No, that's an excellent. The history is full of examples of what happens to stateless people. Mississippi is a good example of what happens to stateless people. You say, well, we've got our state government. We're all controlled by conservative Republicans. But when the people of Mississippi voted overwhelmingly that they wanted this particular flag, what did the puppet government of Mississippi do? Well,
they ignored our voice.
So you're stateless. You have no government that's specifically dedicated to your protection, and that's what we're trying to do. So look, we're in a situation. All conservative, or what I call American values voters, they are all stateless. We all have state. We don't have a government. Now I saw an email not long ago about someone who wanted to. We need to get in the streets and start fighting like the Antifa does. That'll do it. Well, that's just what the liberals want. That's just what the neo-Marxists want us to do for many reasons. But the big reason that we can't do that is that the neo-Marxists, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, they are not a stateless people. They have a government. They've got the federal government, the local Democratic Party protecting them, giving them full cover. They don't have to worry about getting arrested. If you or I went out to a monument with our AR-15 in hand to protect that monument, we would be immediately arrested and we would be charged with felony. And listen, what happens to felons when it comes to gun rights?
They're taken away. And a prime example of looking what happens, look back on January 6th. No matter what your opinion on what happened at the Capitol that day, but look how the media is treating the guys who were there, the guys and gals that were there. I mean, they're calling them insurrectionists, this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, the other side of the coin, who are burning down cities, literally, we're watching them, destroy, a target. That was a peaceful protest. I mean, come on.
Right. See, they have a state to protect them. By state, I mean a government, not necessarily. It may be the city government, maybe the municipal government. It may be the state government. It may be the federal government. They have a government to protect them. We don't. That's why we've got to do something about that. And that's the whole idea. Now, Donald and I, back in 1991, this isn't a new idea. We talked about making a political solution to what's going on in the South. This is way back in 1991. I don't know if anybody's got, let me hold this up. I don't know if you can see it or not. I don't know if anybody's got this first edition, 1991 edition. Dollar, can you see it? Do you have your copy?
I see it.
Now, 1991, you read in the preface and we talk about a political solution. We put it in all caps. I was surprised. I forgot we put it in all caps. And then you read to the summary, call to action. Again, a political solution. We can't solve this by holding, learned lectures. That's good. And it's needed, but that's not going to be the solution. That's got to be part of the solution. We can't win this. Don and I laugh and say, well, if we write one more book, freedom will be won. No, writing good books, giving good lectures will not get the job done. And that's what we're talking about in Dixie Rising.
It is part of the solution. It is not the solution. And that's where we fail a lot of time in the SCV. We seem to think that, well, if I hold enough meetings and we can educate our own little private group, we're great. Yeah, that's part of the solution. It is not the ultimate solution, but it's definitely, and I keep going back to the fact the Sons of Confederate Veterans is essential to getting this done, because we have to educate, motivate, and activate people. Now, we're not a political organization, obviously, are we, Commander? But we can advocate for those principles for which this organization was established, and we are going to do that.
Right. So how do we get the political clout? Now, part of it is the responsibility of SCV to educate ourselves, educate our community, to become what I call influencers, a social influence in your community by not holding secret meetings, not telling anybody. No, we want to send out letters to every civic club, to every preacher, every priest, every rabbi in the community. Any organization, any group of people, we want them to know what we're doing. Why? Because it's an honorable thing we're doing. We've got nothing to be ashamed of. But if we keep quiet and hid, it's going to make you think, well, maybe the public will say, maybe there's something to them being racist or something, because you don't ever hear from them. They stay hid. No, we've got to get out. We've got to be influencers. When I was lucky, I was very honored to address the SCV reunion this past month. And one of the things in my slide presentation I showed was the fact that this idea of infiltrating agents of influence areas in a community was something that goes back to the communists in 1890. They've been at this. Italian guy by the name of Gramsci was the one that started it off. And then a German by the name of Rudolph, I can't pronounce his German last name, but in the 1960s, he advocated we used to call it infiltration. I don't know if any of y'all remember the anti-communist movement in the 60s. We call it communist infiltration. Well, that's exactly what they did. They infiltrated the universities. If you don't believe me, go try to go to a university and give a pro-Southern speech on campus and see what happens to you.
It won't end well.
It will not end well. So, but the point is, we've got to have a political means by which we can overcome this. And part of it is the SCV's responsibility. Well, why is it our responsibility as the SCV? Because that's our charge. That's why we were created, to further the good, honor, the reputation, and the truth about why our ancestors fought the war for Southern independence. But beyond that, that's phase one. The next phase is getting to the politics. So as a private citizen, I'm going to do things politically. I may have a lot of SCV members around me when I do it, but I'm doing it as a private citizen, not as an official function of the SCV. Well, what we advocate in DIXIE Rising, Rules for Rebels, and this is the second edition, by the way. Some people may have the first edition, but it was done. This first edition was done in 2017, and I realized that we probably need to update it just a little bit. So I did that about 2 years ago. But at any rate, what we talk about is, number one, irregular political warfare, not irregular guerrilla warfare now. Irregular political warfare. And I keep italicizing political all through the book because I want to make sure that no one claims that we're trying to start a guerrilla warfare movement. But it's irregular political warfare. Now, I don't have time to go into great details, but I'll just give you an example of what it is. First of all, we're not going to raise what little money we can find and run against every politician that's opposed to us. We don't have that kind of money. And listen, folks.
Not yet, but I've got my lottery tickets.
Well, but Donald Trump, one of the richest fellas in America, he couldn't defeat the deep state with all of his dollars. So don't think that we can play the game that they want us to play. And that's a basic principle of military strategy. You never give the enemy the fight they want. You fight your fight. And that's, boy, if General Forrest was here right now, he'd be telling us the same thing. We got to make an end run around the enemy. So that's how irregular political warfare will do it. I'll give you an example. Here in Louisiana, 2 years in a row, we had this wonderful Republican head of the legislature in the House, I believe it was the House. We submitted our monument protection bill. each year he would take that bill, pull it, and give it to a democratically controlled committee. Well, you know what happened then? The bill died.
But Ryan, he was a Republican.
Yeah, a conservative Republican. He was one of us.
Yeah, right.
No, absolutely not. Now, I'm not surprised that happened, but here's what I'm aggravated. I'm not even aggravated that it happened because it proves my point. What I'm aggravated is the lack of response from the SCV and the Southern Heritage people, whether it's a UDC or
it goes. Well, I mean, I'm assuming y'all's veteran monument bills, just like every other one that's out there, that has going from the French and Indian War all the way to modern day. It should be, and that's essentially what you're talking about. It should be just more than us calling the Capitol screaming. It should be the Marine Corps League, the VFW, the American Legion, because that is not just a Southern issue, it's an anti-veteran issue. That's how we win it.
Yeah, but that's because we were not organized to do that. And that's the problem. Here's what we should have done the first year after that guy stabbed us in the back. We should have gone, this is irregular political warfare. We should have gone into his district, bought 10,000 names from the voting list of Republicans. We don't want Democrats. We want Republicans, and sent letters to every one of them questioning why this man would side with Antifa and Black Lives Matter and the liberal Democrats and stab us in the back. And do we really need this man in representing this district? And by the way, would you go to this website and print off this recall petition? Because in Louisiana, we have the recall. We're going to recall that sucker. Then we're going to put radio ads up. We'll have radio ads going in his district, and we're going to start organizing some work groups in his district all over. Then we're going to start sending letters to the people that gave money, donated to his campaign. Now you're going to hit him in the pocketbook and say, listen, XYZ Chevrolet dealership, you gave X number of dollars to this guy. This is what he did to us. We are your customers. We're going to start flagging your area. We're going to have protesters in front of your area unless you get a hold of this guy and turn him around. Let me tell you, that's irregular political warfare. That's the way to win. Now, look, what if we don't? Well, push comes to shove. Now, grab hold of your armchair. Push comes to shove. If I have to, I'll go to that guy's Democratic opponent at the last election, because he only lost the election. The Democrat only lost the election by 4 or 5 percentage points, and I'll make a deal with him. If you'll stand up for us, you don't have to vote for us. You just have to tell the world that we are not racist, that we believe in our heritage. If you'll do that, we'll get enough of our people to vote for you. And those that can't stand the idea of voting for a Democrat, we'll have them stay at home, and we'll defeat that Republican and put a Democrat in his place. Now, conservatives and the Republican establishment just go crazy over that. This is irregular political warfare. How many of those we got to do, Donald?
We'll do one, and the rest of them will get the message. That's what, and they don't fear us now because they think, well, these guys have nowhere else to go. Oh, hell yeah, we do too. We'll go somewhere, and we're going to send you to a worse place. But all you have to do it once or twice in every state. I'm not talking about going to the U.S. senator and do this. I'm talking about doing it locally at a guy. And that way, everybody, it trickles up from the bottom up. They get the message. These guys are organized. They're mad as hell. And they'll do some crazy things to you if you don't listen to them.
Plus, every SCV count across the Confederation will send copies of the news release to their elected officials. Look what happened to this guy that stabbed us in the back. You don't have to say anything other than that. But, that's irregular political warfare, really taking up a lot more time. I go into much greater detail in the DIXIE Rising, but we've got to go ahead, Don.
Well, I was going to make one quick point here is that the beauty of this is it doesn't take a lot of money to do this. If we ran the guy for governor or U.S. senator, we're talking about millions of dollars. We could do this on a couple $1,000s, and it can be done. And like I said, we only have to do it once, maybe twice, and those rascals will get the message. But we got to be willing to do it. And we've got to be organized, and that's what I'm hoping Ron will get into here in a minute about how we can organize this. And we're coming up on a break, I'm sure. So.
Yes,
So hopefully, Ron, we can get into talking about how we're going to organize.
We're going to talk about the provisional government after the break. Do we need to go to the break right now?
Well, no, we can go on and take a break in a second. But that is one thing I do want to talk about is the provisional government, because at least on my end, when I hear provisional government, I begin to think of something what the liberal media would call alt-right. And I want to dispel that for everybody. And at least before I read the book, that's what I would think. I would think. But I definitely want us to touch on that. So y'all tell us whenever you're ready to take a break. Okay. We'll take a break.
All right. Well, first of all, in the first edition of Dixie Rising, I wish I had the first edition. Donnie, you have your first edition so people can see the difference in it. It's a different cover, but in the first edition I called it a shadow government, but then I got to thinking, what that just sounds, there, hold that up, Don. That's the first edition. Back off a little bit more. There you go. I love that flag and all, but that's the first edition of Dixie Rising, done in 2017. But I got to think a shadow government sounds sort of sneaky or underhanded, or plus I also referred to the neo-Marxist shadow government, so I didn't want to get it confused. So I said, well, I'm going to use provisional government, mainly because I like the idea of the provisional Confederate government way back when. But what it is you can think of it as a large, well-organized at the local level. We're talking about at the parish level, if you're in Louisiana, we're talking about the county level and the rest of the common law states, and at the congressional district level and at the state level. It's like the Tea Party on steroids.
There you go.
One of the problems with the Tea Party, and I had the opportunity to talk to a radio gentleman who was really big. He's got a nice radio program. He writes for Town Hall. He's well known. And I asked him, he was really active in the Tea Party. And I said, what do you think is the major problem or failure of the Tea Party? And he said, well, to tell you the truth, the biggest problem was that we put all of our faith and hope in politicians, and all the politicians wanted to use the Tea Party for was to get more votes so they can get reelected. I said, right, that's exactly right. Plus, the Tea Party never had a strategic plan for ultimate victory. They couldn't even tell you what victory would look like. Well, in Dixie Rise and Rules for Rebels, we tell you what it's going to look like. It's going to look like, number one, this is what our preference is. A return to the original constitutionally limited republic of sovereign states where the Constitution is enforced, like James Madison and Thomas Jefferson said, enforced by the sovereign state. We, the people, are the final arbiter. So if the federal Supreme Court says, hey, transgenders have got to be treated equal in all churches, for instance, and don't think that ain't going to happen. Well, we just say, you can do that in Massachusetts if you want to, but we're going to nullify it in Mississippi and Louisiana and Texas. We'll nullify that. That's the idea of the sovereign state amendment. We want to return to local self-government. Now, if the blue state voters, the neo-Marxist voters of America say, no, we ain't going to let you go, we'll go back and look at that big map again, fella. There's more of us. And we own more turf, we own more territory, and we own more Second Amendment rights than you do. And by cracky, we're going to leave. We're going to create a nation of our own. So we'll hang them on the horns of a dilemma to either pass this constitutional amendment, acknowledging states' rights, the states' rights of nullification and secession, or else we leave. And it's not going to be the South leaving. It's going to be red state America, red county America leaving. And that's the big thing. But we've got to do it through provisional government. So the provisional government is more like a lobbying group, but it's not a lobbying group where we hire a high-paid lobbyist. Now, I don't know how many of you worked. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening have worked with lobbyists before. I did in my former life when I worked for a living. And you hire a lobbyist, and he's got about a half dozen people on his agenda that he's working for. So his full time is not with you. So forget about that. But I mean, they're good. They're very effective. And in the past, I know we've had some SCV members who actually worked in the state legislature, who actually focused on lobbying efforts. So there are those. That's a response. That's a great thing. But the main strength is that we've got the strength at the local level. So if Representative XYZ is not towing the line, we'll burn his telephone up. We'll burn his fax machine up. We'll burn his email up. We'll burn his text up, his telephone. He'll know his people are upset with him. And he'll look back and see where they recalled one guy. I don't want them to start that on me. Hey, here's the nice thing about recalling. Even if you lose the recall vote, like the guy out in California, the governor, is it Newsom that they're trying to recall? Even if he doesn't win, I mean, even if he wins and is not recalled, look at all the aggravation we've caused him just to go through the recall effort. Well,
and that stops their agenda.
Yeah,
I mean, every day that they have to worry about campaigning is another day that we can have somebody on our side pushing our agenda forward.
Absolutely. So that's the whole idea behind a provisional government. It's not an effort to overturn the existing government. It's an effort to control through public pressure the politicians who control the government. Now,
could I make one point again? I'm going to re-emphasize what Ron said here. This has to start, and Carl Jones just made this point also, I saw. It has to be at the local level. You cannot expect a lobbyist in let's say Baton Rouge or Jackson, Mississippi, to be able to get anything done if these legislators are not getting phone calls from their people back home. The provisional government is the one that is responsible for back home local activity to push pressure on the politician, and then we can get something done in the legislature.
Now, in addition to being a lobbying effort at the local, county, and parish, the state level, the provisional government is also responsible for getting information out to the local citizens. Our people have to understand, why are we doing this? Why are we pushing this? One of the things I want to see in Louisiana, and I bet y'all would like to have it too, is a law that says if we provide public monies to a university, that university must treat and teach conservative values the same as they treat secular, humanist, postmodern values. And so the next time Bessie Board comes to Louisiana wanting more money for the universities, we're going to put a rider on this. Not another dollar until you pass this rider, until you allow speakers on your campus and you give college credit for it. Plus, if anyone attempts to disrupt that presentation, they'll be guilty of a felony. They'll be arrested. If they are a student, their records will be frozen. They won't even be able to transfer it anywhere else. They will be expelled, and that'll be the end of them at the university. We've got to make it a costly thing. It's got to cost these people something to disrupt and to use violence. And remember, these are neo-Marxists. They believe what Che Guevara as well as Mao Zedong said. Political power grows from where, Donald?
The barrel of a gun.
So what they're talking about is they believe in the use of violence. Violence is perfectly acceptable to neo-Marxists. And that's why they're not afraid to go out and pull fire alarms to get people, good conservative speakers, out of the house because now the fire department's coming here. No, we've got to have it strict in our law. that we're going to allow conservatives to own campus. We're going to give academic credit for it. And if anyone tries to disrupt these sessions, they will be tried, they'll be convicted. I would like to say hung, but unfortunately, they'll be hung up out to dry because if they're students, all of their academic records will be frozen. They'll never see them again. Plus, they will not be allowed to go into any university or state-funded university in the state. Now, that's tough. That's tough. Now, if they want to stay out in the street and protest, that's no problem. That's no problem. I mean, that's a constitutional right, but you got to do it appropriately. You can't do it with violence and with the intent to intimidate people. And that's what they're doing now. And they're using intimidation as a means to censor us. And we're not going to allow it.
They're doing a good job at it. Now, notice, folks, this cannot be done unless we have a good provisional government. The provisional government cannot be done if the SCV is not doing its fundamental job first. So it's all phase 1, 2, and 3, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about phase 3 and a bully pulpit.
Well, before we talk about that, we do need to take a quick commercial break. Our commercials, of course, are sponsored by our two sponsors. Our first sponsor is Victory Flags and More in Florida, Mississippi, who we've already talked about. They're the ones doing our fall shirt and hopefully future merchandising efforts so we can continue to grow SCV Chat. But also a little thing called the Southern Victory Campaign, Make Dixie Great Again. And because we have the men who came up with that idea with us, I'm going to ask them to talk about it. But before you do, I do want to give a quick shout out to my camp. We met this past Saturday evening, and everybody there left with a stack of the Southern Defender magazines, right. And I instructed them that I want them to take one and at least leave one. So take one with them and at least leave one in an area where they think that they can get some traction with it so that they can read one and educate themselves and so that they can educate the public. And Ray Shores got me about 100 of them, and I left with maybe about 15. So they are making their way around Rankin County slowly but surely right now. Good.
Well, the Southern Victory Campaign was not necessarily mine and Ron's sole idea. Because Paul Gramlin, past Commander-in-Chief Paul Gramlin, he came to us early on saying, "Look what's going on. The SCV has been doing, we filed lawsuits, we've held meetings, rallies, we're still losing. What can we do to win?" And Paul had some ideas. Ron and I, we all three of us batted things together, and we came up with this idea of the Southern Victory Campaign, which spun off the idea of Make Dixie Great Again, the website, and our Confederate Legion. The whole idea is to give the SCV a big megaphone to do a public relation outreach, to tell the general public who we are, why we believe what we believe, and why they should believe also. We want to educate our people, John Q. Public out there. Ron and I call them Billy Bible and Joe Sixpack. Educate those people, then motivate them to become activists and involved, and then make activists out of them. And out of those activists, we get new members in the SCV. So that's what it's in a nutshell, all this is about. And by joining the Confederate Legion, you pay $50, or you can donate $500 or $5,000. I've had people donate as much as $10,000 to this effort. 90 cents out of every dollar goes to our public relation activity. Ron and I, nor anyone in the Confederate Legion, is a paid member. We do not get paid for what we're doing. Everything we do is volunteer. So the idea that we may be getting rich off of this is just absolutely harebrained, crazy, and ridiculous. We are working like everybody else to save our heritage and to save our rights and to have ultimate victory over our enemies. Not just a little pushback, but ultimate victory. We're going to put our heels on their neck at last. That's what this is all about. Ron, what else?
Well, I just want to say, when you put your foot on their heel, your heel on their neck, just remember, you do to them what you do to a copperhead when you have their foot on. You just twist a little bit till they don't wiggle anymore.
Well, not a snake, not a copperhead. I like our
right. Okay, let's say water moccasin, cottonmouth. Cottonmouth. Right.
Now, we're talking about politically putting our political heel on their political neck. Let's understand that.
It's important. Donald and I came up with this idea after we talked to Paul Gremlin, Commander Gremlin, but I just reached back in my old files. This was a plan that we had put together in 1994. 1994, because Donald and I, by the time we published the second edition of The South Was Right, we saw what was coming. And we were told that we were radicals, extremists.
Which is true.
But we saw what was coming, and we put together a plan. We took it to the then leadership of the SCV, and they took one look at it and said, well, we got more important things to do. Y'all go away. We don't need all that. Now, if we had started back in 1994, do you think we'd be where we are today? Of course not. Well, that's crying over spilt milk. It's time to get up and get busy with this as the SCV and win this fight. Because I know we've got 70% of the people, between 60 and 70% of the Southern people who believe what we believe.
And 50% of non-Southerners. That's what's amazing.
You'd have to try to lose this fight.
And we are.
The problem is we haven't gotten into the fight yet. And that's what the provisional government, irregular political warfare, and eventually bully pulpit is all about. We got to start a conservative revolution. We're not talking about a bomb throwing revolution. We're talking about a conservative revolution.
Political
return our country to the Constitution of the founding fathers, not the Constitution of Lincoln and the Republican Party.
Well, we'll be right back. Go ahead and play the commercial. We'll be right back they're about a minute and 30 seconds long. If you want to get a copy of this commercial, go to makedixigreatagain.org. If you want to learn more about the Southern Victory Campaign, go there as well.
I am Rabbi Thomas Fortenberry. I'm a descendant of Isaac Fortenberry, a Confederate veteran. Many of the people in my family were veterans. As a military veteran, I served with the United States Army. It's important to veterans of all wars to remember those who have passed and what they did and what they suffered. Everyone who serves gives a part of themselves. The SCV is much a part of that. The SCV serves people, not only the people that are involved as members, but the community. My commitment to the SCV is a commitment to our heritage, our cause, not in a violent way, nor an aggressive way, simply in the way we live. Live what you believe. But in your defense, know in what you're defending and defend it truthfully. May Yahovah bless you and keep you. May Yahovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace and blessing.
And we're back. What you eating there, Chief?
I'm drinking my Frank Powell will love to see that. That's my Pepsi. I laid off Coke. I gave up Coke for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I've gone to RC Cola, though. I mean, that's much better than Pepsi as far as I'm concerned. I even have some moon pies I eat every now and then. Go along with it.
Any Zuzus, Ron?
Yeah, them too. All right, we want to Connor, you have some questions you want to ask. I know you've read the book. You surely, I'm sure I managed to confuse you well with the
Well, I mean, and just like the one thing that I do want to mention, go back to that you mentioned was or at least we talked about it before stream. I've been kind of trying to help Moose here with the behind the scenes stuff a little bit. But you mentioned the Southern well, it's chapter 10, the Sovereign State Amendment, and we were talking before the stream about ways to do that, about getting a ballot initiative on in every state. And one thing that I found that I would encourage everybody to go and look at least for a good starting point and building block, from my opinion, is the Georgia 2010-2009 legislative session. Their Senate passed a resolution, and it's we can put it on the chat later, and I'll probably send it in the message here in a second. But it's affirming the states' rights based on the Jeffersonian principles and for other purposes, which is essentially everything we've been talking about. Oh, hey, Matt. Everything we've been.
Sorry, I was taking care of some personal business.
But that's and I'm about to go ahead and send it. But that is a good starting point if your state allows ballot initiatives. In Mississippi right now, we're kind of in purgatory, so to speak, if we want to get religious into it. We can't. We're waiting on our legislature to fix our initiative process so that we can do that. But a couple of things I did want to point out for those who do not have a copy of the book but who want to get a copy of the book. Several of the latter chapters actually, what I loved is the actual summation, I guess to say, or the lesson for Southerners that y'all put in here. So, when you talk about, the nonviolent protest versus, everything else, at least Ireland versus India, there's the lessons that we as Southerners can actually use towards our advantage. There's a lot of great stuff. One portion I did kind of skip over was that dealing with the IRS. Strictly as being my personal political beliefs, I believe that all taxation is theft. So you can figure out where I lean. But that's it was a really great book, and it's honestly a perfect blueprint for us to retake back. In a sense, take back our nation.
Amen.
Our nation as the United States, as well as a Southern people as well.
Right. And I wanted to mention the IRS. That's one of the things I really want to get provisional governments in every county across the South, because up on, say, around April the 10th, leading up to April the 15th, what happens on April the 15th?
You ain't paid your tax and you go to jail.
That's right. So I want to once we get our movement going and people start hearing about us and what we're pushing, we put up one Thursday night, we get together as a group all across the South, and we cover the South with posters saying nullify the IRS, and put our web site on the bottom of it. Now, the idea is that who loves the IRS? Other than, Lois Lerner and those types, who loves the IRS?
Tax attorneys.
Yeah. So you're going to immediately, and the people who have gotten caught up in the network of being audited and all, they're going to really like that. And they're going to say, what is this nullifying? What are these people? I want to find out. So you can stir a lot of interest and you can normalize the whole idea. And that's what we're trying to do. So that's just one of the things one of the many things we can do is irregular political warfare. Now, I did want to talk about the bully pulpit. And a lot of people, I think all of you are too young to remember George Wallace, and even Donald and I
voted for Wallace.
Oh my goodness, you must have been a baby.
I wrote him in. I wrote him in on one of the last presidential, not the immediate past or the one before. It was I believe the 2000 and It was the Romney Obama year.
Yeah.
I wanted to vote on my down ticket stuff, but I couldn't personally stomach the upper ticket, so I wrote in George Wallace. So
Okay. Well,
Hey, Ron voted for him in '68. That tells you how old he is.
yeah. Hey, listen, I used a paper ballot and put it in a tin box with a slit in the top of it. That's how long ago. But I tell you what, it was a legitimate vote. There wasn't any printed after the fact ballots put in. But anyway, the point I'm making with George Wallace and also Huey Long. Now, Huey Long, surely you've read about him, knew about him, but Huey Long had a tremendous popular movement. He had a great organization, much like what we're talking about with a provisional government, all across the country. And he had he probably would have bumped FDR had he not been assassinated. Now, when he was shot and killed, his movement died. Now, the same thing happened with George Wallace. Poor man, he wasn't killed. He was made a paraplegic, but his movement died because he was no longer able to be the bully pulpit guy out there pushing the movement. So it's very important that a movement have someone in the quote bully pulpit, an elected official, someone who's out there promoting the cause, using the prestige of that office to promote the cause. But you can't have a movement to last if you only have one guy.
What I want to say about that's great. We had one here in Mississippi, but you do have to be careful with it, because sometimes those politicians will come back and you'll think he's a statesman on the one hand, but he'll turn back around and bite you. So you got to be careful with that.
That's the point I make very clear. Whoever is in the bully pulpit has to be one of us. He can't be a professional politician. Remember what my radio DJ columnist told me? You can't put your faith in politicians. He's got to be one of us, somebody that we know that we can trust. Plus,
hey, Ron, in the civil rights movement, they call that people who are down for the struggle. Yes. They only supported people who were, quote, down for the struggle, people who had been there, done that, worked with them, not somebody Johnny come lately that jumped in there and said, hey, I like what y'all do and vote for me. And that's what Ron is talking about. It's got to be one of us.
So suppose in 2023, I ran for lieutenant governor in Louisiana and won. All right, now I've got a bully pulpit. Now, if I come to Jackson, Mississippi as a best-selling author, how much notoriety will that bring? The media will go to sleep. Yeah, but if I come there as the lieutenant governor, duly elected lieutenant governor of the state of Louisiana, who is pushing for a cause to change America back to what is founding principles, I could fill the Coliseum. We could get a movement going. We could help Mississippi get its provisional governments going. Now, once you do that across the country, I know there's a good guy I know in Mississippi who is a young man, but perhaps he would like to run for lieutenant governor in Louisiana and Mississippi.
Yeah,
great. We've got another bully pulpit working for us. Now look,
Ron, right quick. The reason he keeps going back to lieutenant governor, you don't want the governorship. It costs too much for one thing, and number two, he would be totally tied up. Did we lose Carter? Are you drinking over there?
Well, it is Mint Monday in my house. But no, my camera tripod that I had, I bought it when we first started the show for $5, just broke on me.
Oh, okay. Well, let me get what I'm saying is that you cannot have somebody who will be tied up running the affairs of the state instead of having time as lieutenant governor go about supporting the idea of our movement. That's why he keeps going back to lieutenant governor. It's just
and you got to be smart about it. You got to see where the seat of power is. In Mississippi, our lieutenant governor is president pro tem of our state senate. And in all honesty, one of the real seats of power is our Commissioner of Agriculture.
See there,
being an agrarian state, he's got the largest industry under his belt.
Well, let me tell you why I like the idea of the Louisiana Lieutenant Governor. Donald, what's the responsibility? What does the Lieutenant Governor of the sovereign state of Louisiana, what does he spend his day doing?
Well, his main object is to call the governor's wife every morning and make sure the governor is okay. So the lieutenant governor don't have much to do. Now, he is head of the tourism so-called bureau, and kind of a make-do job for him. But in Louisiana, basically all he has to do is make sure the governor's alive. Other than that, that's it.
Now, if I were the lieutenant governor of Louisiana, I would have plenty of time to do programs like this, to be in states all over the Confederacy to get this movement off the ground. And we've got to get other bully pulpits so that the thing that happened to Wallace and happened to Huey Long doesn't happen to this movement. You can't have a movement built on one charismatic individual. Not that I'm charismatic, but
yeah.
Well, we did get one question in from our cousin Benny, who's being held as a prisoner of war up in New Jersey. He asked, what do you do if you're faced with a state election or even a local election, for that matter, where both candidates on record do not support our heritage or what we believe in?
Well, at that point, you are truly a stateless individual. You have no one to protect your interests. You've got to organize your your provisional government in your local area and start working to convince the majority of the people, or at least a large percent. You don't have to have a majority, a large percentage of the people in a local area, why we need to change this form of government, to change it from what it is now, which is basically a neo-Marxist leftist government, back to the original constitutional republic of sovereign states. So if you have no choice, then you may want to sit out the election and work on fomenting in your area a work group to start this campaign. Remember, this is a revolution. This isn't an effort to win the next election. This is a revolution. So you don't win it by contesting elections. You don't win it by supporting this guy or that guy. You do it. You strategically decide which one you might want if you want to support either one of them. But the most important thing is to get out and get your message out to the local community. And if you have enough support, you may want to run in a state election where there's no one supporting your ideas, but you don't want to do that until you have laid the groundwork first. That's why we emphasize you've got to educate, activate, motivate, and activate. That's the key to it. But this is not an effort.
As Ron has said, and I'm walking over him, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You've got to be organized locally before you contest these elections. You've got to be organized locally before you can accomplish anything. That's why we're going back to this concept of provisional government being the local lobbying effort, and the local lobbying group is multifaceted, but it's got to be local. Carl Jones said it very well earlier about it has to be local, because if you go national, even statewide, you're going to lose out. Power begins in our system of government at the local level. We can make changes from the local up. It's instead of trickle down, it's trickle up.
And that's one of the things we point out in Dixie Rising is we're wanting to do an end run around or outflank our enemy. The enemy's strength is in regular, well-timed, well-ran, national, local, state, local elections. And they can then, as we saw in Georgia, the liberals can pump millions of dollars in a regular election. What we're wanting to do is do an end run around that. We want to organize the people at the local level, get them enthused about the idea of regaining America, restoring the Constitution.
And if you let me take a moment of personal privilege, I don't think we've seen this guy comment before. If we have, I apologize. But, just to go back to what you're saying about this is a nationwide thing. John Roberts just messaged in from Connecticut.
There you go.
And your first time messaging, please continue to message and hold on. But as far as going back to the think locally, act locally, to steal that from McClanahan, what we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks and what y'all been talking about tonight, the easiest, and what y'all mentioned in the book, the easiest way, that is a stepping stone for us is our local school board elections. Mm-hmm. If we could get our people on the local school boards, just think about how much influence, we can make in at least the future generations of the South.
Right. And we've got to, first of all, like Donald says, and I say, and you all have said, we've got to educate the local population. Look, we got to present to them, we got to leave them with a vision. When we talk to them, we're not talking about the glories of Robert E. Lee, which he was a glorious man. I don't doubt that. We're not talking about that. We're not even talking about preserving our Second Amendment rights, which we want to do that. We're talking about, and we're giving the people a vision, a new vision. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. Well, I have a vision. I have a vision of an America where local self-government is the rule, that we, the people at the local level, are the ultimate authority. The Supreme Court can say whatever it wants to say. The majority of the time, we'll probably follow them. But if they say something stupid, like, the definition of marriage is between 3 men and 5 goats, no, ain't going to happen in this state. Thank you very much.
We can't talk about Tennessee like that, Ron.
Oh, you just lost us some friends.
I'm sure glad Jason ain't on tonight.
Matt
Nashville,
is a native Georgian.
Nashville don't dictate to us.
Yeah. Well, listen, put that map of the United States, the red counties, back up. For the person from Connecticut that, if you can find it.
There it goes.
All right. Here is conservative America. Here is American values voters. Here are the people in these counties across the United States. Certainly the liberals, the neo-Marxists, they control the left side of the country. They control New England, but even Maine. Look up in Maine. There's a lot. And I don't know, that can't be Massachusetts. I see a little red up there. I don't know if that's Connecticut or not.
New Hampshire and Connecticut got some good conservative
counties there. So there are people all over who would love an opportunity to come out from under the rule of the neo-Marxists. We've got to explain to them that, look, if you live in these red counties, you are a stateless individual. You have no government to protect and promote your interests, that you've got to help form these provisional governments. And with that, we'll be able to force the political elite to bend to our will. And if they don't bend to our will, then we'll create a nation of our own. All right, you can take the map down now. Well, I'm not going to let the dead space say I can always find something to fill it with, but I wanted to point out the very importance of the bully pulpit again. We've got to have, number one of our own, not a politician. If he or she is a politician, that should automatically count them out, because they are more interested in getting in office and staying in office. We've seen that in every one of our legislatures, whether they're Republican controlled or not.
Hey, Ron, didn't we see that with Nikki Haley? She was a defender of Southern history and Southern. She was proud of her heritage and ours. Yeah. What happened to her? There he goes again. Don't let that boy drink that whiskey before he gets on air.
Good Lord.
Keep trying stuff.
At least he's not freezing.
Yeah. All right, so we got to have one, and our bully pulpit's got to be one of our own, somebody that has a strategic plan to overcome the neo-Marxist cabal that's in charge of America today. And that includes the media, the digital media, mainline media. That includes the postmodernists in academia. A lot of people don't realize this, and they think, well, that's up in the New England states, Yale and Harvard. No, it's an Ole Miss. It's everywhere. There was a study done, and I'll talk about this in Be Ye Separate, the book on for the Christians, that there was a study done of young people at a university close to Washington, D.C. As the young people would walk by, they would show them a picture, a copy of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto and a copy of the Holy Bible, and ask them which one of these books is the most dangerous to society. Without exception, they didn't even hesitate. They pointed to the Bible as being more dangerous to society than Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. If you don't think the postmodernists haven't taken over our universities, then you're smoking wacky weed, because that's not the case. And we've got to take the initiative through our provisional governments in state legislatures to make sure we have an opportunity to present the other side of the story. Now, oh, by the way, there was one student did point to the Communist Manifesto as being the most dangerous, and she was a recent immigrant from Venezuela. Let that sink in.
Yeah, well, she knew all about communism.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, she did.
There was another. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one thing we need to remember, at least with dealing with politicians, is there's a difference between a politician and a statesman. A politician is concerned about the next election. A statesman, in the truest sense of the word, he is concerned about the next 10 generations.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have many of those anymore.
No. We don't. We really don't. And look, the system is designed to maintain the status quo. The political system that we are suffering under today is designed to maintain the status quo. And that's why it's so important that we come up with a different approach to this system than we've had in the past, just electing good conservatives. The problem is, even when you elect a good conservative, once he gets to Washington, he don't stay good. And that's the problem. And we have right now no ways of changing that situation. That's why we must have provisional governments in every county, every parish of the states. We must have it in every state. We must actively conduct irregular political warfare. We must give these neo-communists, these neo-Marxists, a fight they've never had before, because they expect us to come at them in the traditional manner. We're going to do what General Forrest wanted to do when Sherman was marching on Atlanta. He begged for an opportunity to be turned loose so he could attack Sherman's rail line coming to Atlanta. Yeah. And after the war, Sherman said that the only thing that kept him up at night was worrying about Forrest attacking and destroying his supply line, because his army would have starved to death before it got to Atlanta. Forrest also said, you West Painters, y'all going to cause us to lose this war. Well, what he meant by that was, doing the traditional things is not going to win when you're outnumbered by people who have more money, more people, more resources. You've got to come up with something irregular. And that's what Forrest was known for doing. In military, they call it the strategy of the indirect approach. So you don't go straight at the enemy. You come at him, outflank him. You do an end run around him. And that's what irregular political warfare is all about. That's what we talk about in Dixie Rising. That's the outline. But you've got to remember, it's a strategic plan for victory. We're good at fighting tactical battles, and every now and then we win a couple of tactical battles. But let me tell you something. We won a great tactical victory at the First Manassas. Did it do any good?
We didn't follow up on it.
Exactly. So that's the difference. We must turn these, quote, tactical victories into strategic victories. That's the plan in Dixie Rising.
Yeah.
Well, one thing.
Right quick. Let me just, one last thing. I know we're coming on into this, but this whole book and what Ron has been talking about here is we're talking about changing the narrative politically. We're talking about doing some, making a fundamental, get that term, fundamental change in America. We're going back to what the founding fathers gave us, not what Abraham Lincoln and the modern neo-Marxists are giving us. So that's why this whole concept could catch on nationwide. We're not talking about just the South. As I said in the beginning, the SCV is very important. The South is very important. But as Ron pointed out, it's the catalyst of a greater movement nationwide. And we're going to have to look at things differently than we've been looking at things, both in the SCV and politically, for the last 50 years, or we're doomed to ultimate failure and defeat. Ron and I won't have to worry about it. We're at that age in a couple of years, we will be out of here anyway, but our children and our grandchildren will suffer if we don't do something better than what we've done for the last 50 years.
Well, the one thing I was going to ask that we really haven't touched on that much is Chapter 2, which Chapter 2 is dealing with, I believe y'all entitled it Know Your Enemy and opposition research, essentially. And, you know, any type of campaign, whether it's military, political, or heck, even football, you know, what is it you do on during the week leading up to a football game? You watch film. We've got to start doing that. We've got to start doing opposition research on politically on anybody that's against us, because if you don't believe that the trolls are watching this page, we ban them left and right whenever they decide to get stupid and say something. But we've got to get on that as well. We have to know what our enemy is thinking and be a step ahead of them.
You're absolutely right. And you know, the thing about it is, people will say, thank you, Carl. Amen to you too.
Amen. Thank you, Carl.
But people, I get so upset when I hear an SCV member or a fellow conservative who's never even heard of the SCV will hang their head and say, oh, all's lost. We can't do. We can't. They got too much money. They're just too strong. I just want to slap them, you know. And I'm getting to the age where if I slapped them, they'd probably kill me, because at my age, one swing back and I'd be dead. But the idea
you may not be good as you once were, but you're good once.
The idea that we can't win is so absurd that it's laughable if it wasn't so sad. Listen, Lech Walesa. Everybody knows who Lech Walesa was. He was just a little old shipyard worker. And yet he started in Gdansk, Poland, started the Solidarity movement that ended up overturning the communist empire.
Yeah.
And listen, you think we're worse off than he was? They had the KGB grabbing people off the street and losing them for forever, killing them and putting them in the gulag. You think we're worse off than they were? You don't think the Southern people don't have the same ability that the Polish people have? God love the Poles, but I tell you what, we can do the same thing if we have the ability, the will to do it. We have the ability. We need the will to do it. And I know we can do it. One of the things is we've got to decide on who we're going to put in the bully pulpit so we can get this movement really off the ground. And, Louisiana's got election coming up in 2023. Mississippi's got election coming up. I know there's some other places, but we've got to get together and we've got to be willing to, here we go talking about money, but we got to be willing to finance that effort. But if you play it right, you've got someone that's reasonably well known in the area, that's well qualified educationally, that won't be an embarrassment to the campaign, and you're organized in the parishes or the counties. yeah, we can win this thing, and it won't take millions of dollars to win it. And God help them once we take that bully pulpit.
Especially if you have a candidate that is really offering a vision that our people, I'm talking about John Q. Public, they want to hear it. I was at a little old coffee shop in redneck northern Louisiana, this morning, and I had some redneck guy that probably just barely got out of high school, and he was making more sense than 90% of the politicians that we've elected. These people are eager for someone to lead them to say, come on, let's get this done. We can do it, fellas.
I agree 100%. I agree with everything y'all said tonight. I know I ain't said much. I got to be honest with you. Today's been a trying day for me, watching what's going on in Afghanistan, being a veteran of those wars. So I have a serious disdain for politicians right now. But well, you guys you guys hit the nail on the head with the hammer tonight, and I appreciate y'all being on. I'm sorry I couldn't be on earlier. My apologies, but we were taking care of getting my stepson on the road tonight. So,
well, as far as your service in Afghanistan, God bless you for it. We all have family members, if not ourselves, then family members who have served over there. And I've had some conversations with some, and they are in the military, they're very depressed because of the lack of leadership. Now, I guarantee you they're getting plenty of critical race theory training, but as far as being true play, and it'll also give you a little more empathy for the Vietnam vets because
Amen.
Damn it, we've been through this once before.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a cousin of mine that was a Vietnam vet, and he said, yep, now you guys know how we feel.
Well, it's not just the veterans, it's all Americans, because I know I have family members that lost people in Afghanistan. So I know Donald and I have friends we went to school with that was injured and finally died of Agent Orange from Vietnam. Yeah, a government that detests its people that much, there's something wrong with it. And we've got to bring that government back under control, and we've got to bring local self-government. It's got to be the hallmark of American liberty. It used to be, but thanks to Lincoln and the Republican Party, it ain't no more. But by the time we're going to do something about it.
Well, I got one final question. What are y'all doing on Thursday, September 23rd?
Beats the heck out of me.
Well, check your calendars really quickly because I want to go ahead and invite y'all back. We started this last year with we had Carl and Ron Waters. They came on for our Constitution Day episode, which Constitution Day is September 17th.
Right.
Well, that just so happens to be the day before the funeral. So we can't have an episode. I've already talked to Matt about this, about postponing our Constitution Day special until September the 23rd. And we would love to have you and both of y'all and our proclaimed constitutional expert Carl Jones come on, and y'all pick what y'all want to talk about, and y'all just let it happen.
There you go.
Hey, could I make a suggestion also? Lisa, make a point. The Confederate Legion, Make Dixie Great Again, we will start in September pushing our counterattack on the Constitution as a Southern document. We have radio ads that will be coming out. We have videos about the Constitution, and we'll be pushing that and trying to get our camps, SCV camps, to get involved with that.
Well, it sounds like you just mentioned what y'all gonna talk about then.
Well, I hope we get things rolling well before that. Should by the end of this month, Ron and I will get things lined up on that. So we'll get going.
Well,
but we will be
on
the 23rd.
All right. Well, we'll hold you to it. We appreciate y'all for coming on as always. Y'all are always welcome on on our Mondays, on our Thursdays, whenever we're live. We'd love to have y'all on, mainly because we see we're working together to do everything that we've talked about tonight. For y'all still who are still watching, reminder that we have a second program every week, Look Around the Confederation, with Matt Singleton, and I guess Moose is a current fixture on there.
Moose is a current fixture. And hey, this week we're having Christian Lee is going to be our special guest from Texas. So Christian Lee is going to join us this week, this Thursday.
All right. What time is that, Matt?
At 7 Confederate Standard Time.
7 o'clock Confederate Standard Time, same SCV chat channel. Remember to tune in and watch. Other than that, get a copy. Kennedy Twins, where can people get a copy of Dixie Rising if they haven't gotten it already?
Victory Flags, you can get it through them, or you can go to your favorite online bookstore. You can get it at our website, www.kennedytwins.com. You click on the picture of the book, and it'll take you straight to Victory Flags. The Kennedy brothers don't peddle books, so we do good to write them. So we don't peddle them, but Victory Flags handle it. But you can go to our website, click on the book picture, and it'll take you straight to Victory Flags.
Next week, we have our first Hearth and Home episode, which is mainly going to be the older, less attractive version of myself, Executive Director Adam Southern, and Matt speaking about something from the museum. They're working on picking what they're going to talk about now. So tune in for that, and trying to think of what else. Next month for those of y'all who are interested in what book we're going to talk about, you should have seen in the comments section Dr. Sandy Mitchum. We're doing his book Bust Hell Wide Open. That's our next book that we're discussing.
Good one.
I know I'm listening to it on Audible whenever I have a chance.
Too.
Y'all need to go and listen to that, get a copy of it. You got a month to get that book down. And Sandy, if you're still on, if not, I'm going to message you on Facebook later. We'd love to have you on to talk about the book as well.
That'd be
until
awesome.
next week, in the words of the late great Harold Philpotts, we're signing off with No Fumar in the elevator.